Back again.
Back again.
Part 2 of episode 2. Double deuce. Anyway, so, back to our subject, which is WCW. Now, whoops. Anyway, Black Saturday happened. Vince McMahon, put his programming on. Ted Turner or Jim Crockett, they wanted their programming back. So they paid him $1 million to get it back.
Yeah.
And basically, what did Vince do with that money?
Yeah. WrestleMania.
Yeah. So basically, the Crockett's paid for WrestleMania.
Crockett's paid for WrestleMania. And mind you, they didn't get anything from it. I'm laughing because...
They didn't get them. They gave
from it.
They didn't get the money.
It took him, WrestleMania, first one happened in 84? 85.
85.
85.
2 years after Starrcade.
2 years after Starrcade, it happened 85.
85.
84, 85.
Ish.
Our
one fan we have.
So when it happened in 84, 85, it didn't happen until now in the 2000s that, they put out the DVD and they talked about it. So they got, oh yeah, we're going to acknowledge it, but you're not going to get anything from it.
Yeah, you're not getting shit from it.
There's no production, and so it was just like,
It's like big old F you to them. But now, when the Crockett's got it back, and basically, Jim Crockett Jr., with all due respect, was not a business guy. He drained, the money was going downhill. He was expanding too soon, I think.
Well, when you start going, the thing is, if you're from in this area,
the Carolinas,
in the Mid-Atlantic area, and there's a lot of
there's all the territories.
So I was going to get on that.
Yeah, territories like you had Chicago, you had San Francisco, you had Canada, Midwest. He wanted to go that route to take his talent, but the thing was, it was costing a lot of money. In the 80s, money was a big issue as far as this business. Okay, so basically, the bookkeeper was not doing his job well, I guess.
Yeah.
And it made Crockett go $5 million in the hole.
No, that's just 80s money.
Yeah, now if Trump was in the hole this time, that would be like, oh, that's chump change. 80s, that's way past life. That's like 15 life savings, maybe. In the 80s.
that was
so,
in the 80s.
That's a
shitload
of money.
Yeah,
that's a shitload of money.
Shitload of money.
Yeah. So basically, Jim Crockett had to sell, and Ted Turner got it. Thank God him. And then WCW started. But when WCW started, that's when the real shit hit the fan.
I want to touch on something else again. Again, a little bit of history for you. WCW was the name of a program, World Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
It wasn't the
promotion.
JCP, were Jim Crockett Promotions, was the name of the promotion. Their show was called World Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So when they sold to Turner, he said, "Okay, we're going to call it World Championship Wrestling instead of." Because he couldn't because that it was owned by Jim Crockett.
Yeah, what else could he call it? But basically, Ted Turner got it. But the thing was, the management side was, oh my god, it's a poor taste in my mouth, I think. What's that guy's name that really fucked it up?
Well, there was Hurd.
Yeah.
I think there was
Hurd. Well, Jack Petrie, he was brought in to manage, which did a good job. But when he brought in Jim Hurd, holy shit.
Jim Hurd was a guy who was wrestling a pizza place.
Yeah, he was running a pizza place, and he's brought in to run a worldwide wrestling promotion. I mean, he was there when they had the Super Show, did the Super Show with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Anytime he was doing an interview or promoting something in the ring, he had notes. Like he had to have a script.
Yeah.
To read or something like that. I'm sure he couldn't even read what he wrote. I don't know. But Jim Hurd, dumped on WCW. He's the one that caused Ric Flair to go to WWE.
Yeah.
So
that was big because at that point in time,
I mean, Flair was the man.
Flair hadn't worked for anybody else. He had never even
been to WWE before.
He had worked in New York, but he never had to be the guy to work for Vince. But Flair hated it so much that he goes, "I'm not going to give you the fucking title back."
Yeah, give him my money or fuck you.
And basically, we all know what happened.
Fuck you.
He walked out with the title.
Yeah.
That was something big.
Oh yeah.
That was big.
And that caused a lot of heat right there too.
Yeah, we were talking about heat.
So, but we'll take a short break. But we're gonna continue this mismanagement thing. So we got a lot more to talk about. So stay tuned for part number 3.
Okay, I guess we caught that.
What?
We're back.
Part 3.
Part 3.
Episode 2. Continue our subject.
Mm-hmm. Poor management.
And WCW.
And
Jim Herd. Oh my God.
Jim Herd comes in. Now, the product in the ring wasn't bad. In fact, the rivalries, everything was really good.
Yeah, but the management, it was the upper echelon. They didn't know. They really didn't know a wrestler from versus watch. They didn't know wrestling.
Yeah.
They had to try what? They had like lawyers run it, accountants run it. You know, why? They wouldn't have a wrestler.
Tried to have a dog run it. That didn't really work.
I think I was Ren 1010, but I don't know. Anyway, basically, they didn't want a wrestler or people with wrestling knowledge to run it. Like we have knowledge, they wouldn't want. If back then we still had the knowledge, they wouldn't want us to run it. And we probably would have done.
They tried with Dusty Woods.
And
they tried with the American Dream.
He is a creative son of a bitch.
Yeah.
He came up with Starrcade, War Games, and eventually he came up with the Shockmaster. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry I mentioned that. That was WCW too. So, anyway, Jim Herd shit on WCW, basically, and they had Bill Watts come in. Whew.
I am a fan of Bill Watts.
Yeah, I mean he's hard nosed, he's hard assed, but that's the way he wanted. He wanted to instill discipline, and take away some of the aspects. He wanted to take away the mats to show that WCW wrestlers are not a bunch of wussies.
He didn't want to. At this point in time, also you had guys like in the WWF, and don't think that we'd like to dump on the WWF. We like to dump on everybody.
Yeah.
Basically,
including Michael Cole.
We'll get to him later.
Oh yeah, real later.
And it's not that we're dumping; it's just we're talking about things that frustrate us.
Yeah, this is a shoot to us. We are shooting straight, not bullshitting you. Okay, I mean, I'm not bullshitting. You're not bullshitting.
I don't believe in it.
No.
And unlike a lot of things, I've got to say, unlike a lot of these style.
Yeah.
We're not going to, coddle up to somebody just because we, like their product versus this. If they like TNA versus WWF versus Ring of Honor versus anything else, we're not going to dump on it if it doesn't need to be. But if we see something that's a little,
we're going to shit on it.
Yeah.
And we're not being marks here. Okay, that's the thing. We're siding with these people. We're not marks. Okay, and definition of a mark is basically you're cheering for one person because they're a good guy. I mean, I admit I was when I was younger. Cheer for the heroes, boo the villains. But then when I watch more, I looked at their techniques in the ring, their abilities. That's what I look at. No, that's not being that's being observer of wrestling, not a mark. A mark is what Michael Cole is. Sorry.
So
anyway,
no.
So yeah, but Bill Watts, he did a lot of things that were a little controversial. People wanted him to come in because he could lay down the law, but the corporate would give him headaches. He's like, screw this, I'm gone. And so, enter Eric Bischoff.
Yeah. Also, another thing I wanted to touch on with this is, I wanted to touch on it to see if we are, getting through to you that there were no comic book characters. There was nothing ridiculous in WCW at that point in time.
Well, unless you count Jim Herd bringing ding dongs.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about it's still. You had guys like Sting,
Flair, Steiners,
in their prime.
Ron Simmons in his prime. Butch Reed. Arn Anderson. Pillman. Barry Windham.
The Dragon.
The Legion of Doom. I mean, these were wrestlers. Early with Paul Ellering.
Yeah.
These are wrestlers, okay?
Oh, yeah, also Rick Rude and the Texas Rattlesnake. Well, he wasn't known as the Texas Rattlesnake.
Steve Austin.
Stunning
Steve Austin.
A young
These were wrestlers. They didn't care about entertainment value. They didn't care about, selling merchandise. That's another thing. It was all about merchandise, too. But when Eric Bischoff comes in, he didn't come in as a fan of wrestling, as a persona. He came in 180. He sold himself as a marketing guy. That's his. He knew how to market himself.
But funnily enough, Eric started as an announcer for Vern Gagne in the AWA.
Yeah.
In Minnesota.
Yeah, but he didn't sell himself as a former announcer. He wanted to be an executive, which he was, hired as an executive, and what was the first big thing he did? He brings in Hulk Hogan.
I mean, that was big.
That was a shaker. Like that's the earthquake that shook up WWE because it lost their biggest star, and WCW had the biggest acquisition back then in '93.
You know, so he basically, Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, did what Flair did, but in reverse.
Yeah, and he didn't take a title with him.
He didn't take the title with him, but he came in. He didn't really need it at that point because
he made all the money.
He had name.
Yeah, he had the recognition of being Hulk Hogan. He had the fan base. He had, I guess, the accolades, you might say.
Yeah.
And he took that, and he took that. What do you call it? Well, the recognition, brought it to WCW, and gave WCW more notoriety and
quick.
Yeah, and more money.
More money.
Why? Because Hogan and money. That was the thing.
That was the.
And then WCW had the knowledge of finally putting Flair and Hogan on a pay-per-view. That should be '94.
And that's the thing. Vince had a chance, man. He could have.
Yeah.
That was a
WrestleMania. That was a WrestleMania caliber match. But what they do? They put it on the Madison Square Garden house card.
And that was, didn't get to see it because there weren't any people taping it. House shows, as you know, aren't regularly taped.
Yeah. Unless they put it on DVDs now.
Yeah, unless there's what happened to Triple H and the show. But we will get back to that. Yeah.
Anyway.
We'll get back to that later.
So Hogan comes in, with Bischoff. Then Bischoff was like, "Oh man, I get Hogan. I'll give the rest of these other former WWE stars." So he gets Savage, and then who else he gets?
Brain Heenan.
Mean Gene Okerlund. Yeah. He had Nick Bockel come in as a commissioner.
Yes, he did.
Former
one of my
champion.
all-time faves.
Yeah.
One of the greatest, if not, I'm not going to go on record as saying one of, if probably not the greatest world champion, carried himself as a champion, always dressed as a champion, and the man is a second generation. There are only very few. Hall of Famer. There's only a very few. He and Flair and Buddy Rogers, I think, are the three that I would consider the greatest of all time.
Good one. But anyway, so like I said, Hogan comes in, Savage comes in, Gene Okerlund, Bobby Heenan. Now, what was the next big step for Bischoff to do? Take it to Monday night, because WWE was doing their Monday night thing for. It was in their 2-year run, and Ted Turner was like, Jimmy Stewart stuttering. Yeah. And said, Bischoff, I'll give you Monday nights. You do what you got to do.
Now Bischoff said, now, Billionaire Ted had asked, I'm sorry, I got to say it.
Sorry.
Ted Turner had asked Eric Bischoff, what do we got to do to compete with the WWF?
Yeah.
At that point in time, they hadn't been changed to WWE. So the WWF, and Eric said, give me Monday nights.
Yeah.
So thinking it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, he was like, I'm just shooting shit at you.
Yeah, and
he wasn't. And the thing is, he wasn't there to talk about putting Nitro on. He was doing something else. And also, Turner was like, I want to compete with WWE. Yeah, I want to compete. I'll give you 2 hours.
2 hours, and then it got really interesting because no one knew. Well, I guess some people might have known, but the general public didn't know that WWF, that Raw was taped. And
Nitro was live.
Nitro was live.
So, and Bishop had the genius mind, I guess. The genius mind of giving the results of Raw away on his live show. And the thing about his live show was people were showing up out of nowhere. Like the first episode, who showed up out of nowhere?
Well, the first person to show up, that was kind of out of nowhere. We didn't really,
You didn't know the backstory of it.
Scott Hall.
No. I mean, the first guy to show up, it was the first night show. It was Lex Luger.
Lex Luger.
Yeah, nobody knew why until you watch it. But the bigger one was Scott Hall. And it was like, what the hell? I thought he was still with WWE. He's Razor Ramon. What's he doing here?
See, when Scott Hall left, it was at a house show.
Yeah, the curtain call.
The curtain call. Do your history.
Yeah.
It was the curtain call.
So
when he left, and as well as Big Sexy Kevin Nash, no one knew unless you were at in New York.
Yeah. So, but let's hold off on that again. We'll talk about the Outsiders when we come back.
Yes.